I'm always very surprised to find that when I meet people on a plane or train or standing on a bus stop or in a lunch counter or just in some other type of a situation where I meet someone in my home or I meet someone in their home or an office and another human being, and we're talking about different things, in some way I navigate myself to ask that person the question, what do you think about life? And the person says, well, what do you mean by that? I said, life. Well, what do you think about it? What do you think the meaning is? What do you think the purpose is? And you'll be surprised that intellectual people, educated people, religious people, opinionated people, arrogant people, rich people, white people, black people, Americans, British, Australians, Spanish, Germans, French, heads of state, diplomats, athletes, celebrities, people whom you would think should have some kind of grip or have come to some kind of determination about this very simple question. I asked them, well, what do you think is the purpose of life? And suddenly there's a silence. There's a hesitation. The person is not forthright. And I always remind myself, and I always remind the person that this is not a religious question. It's not a philosophical question. It's not a dialectical question. It's not a tricky question. It's a very simple, straightforward question. And if you haven't answered it, if you haven't reconciled it within yourself, if your set of values, you haven't reconciled that question for yourself to be able to answer it straightforward, like you would if I asked you your name, then there's a problem. And you need to think about that problem. You need to work it out. Because every human being needs to answer that question, at least for themselves. And they need to answer it objectively, not just subjectively, as it applies to me, my opinion. What do you think is the purpose of life for all human beings? Because when human beings start to think about that question, it's an all-inclusive question. And you can't just ask that question for yourself, because there are others involved in life. And when you start to think about others, other places, other people, other situations, other ideas, when you start thinking about the world as it is, not the world as you think it is, you start to change a little bit yourself. You start to move outside of yourself. You start to take in a whole lot of other considerations. And I always say to people, if you haven't thought about this, you need to go home, cut off the TV, turn off the music, let the kids go and play, let your wife go and shop, or let your husband go someplace, and sit in your house or your room in silence for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, and think about what is the purpose of life. Because when you start thinking about that question, you take the first steps, just like a child takes their first steps in life. You start taking the first steps to balancing and reconciling probably the most important question for the human being. Now, this is not a question that cannot be easily defined. It can be. If you turn to any one of the many dictionaries that would be available in an institution like this, or a public library, or available in your home or your office, the terminologies have been defined already. So it's not rocket scientists. It's not rocket science here. The word purpose generally means aim, objective, underlying reality, goal, determination, reason, and intent. Now that's very powerful. The word life, one of the most powerful words that explain life, that's unfathomable. You can't even really, when you say the word, you can't even think of really what it means. Existence. Now, how do we think about existence? Is it vertical? Is it horizontal? What's the depth to it? What's the diversity of it? How far is it? How many kinds of creatures does it involve? What kind of substances? Where? How? When? Who's behind it? How did it come about? Such a profound word, existence. The phenomena of the world, the term of a human being's existence before what we call death. Death. A word that none of us like to say unless it applies to someone or something else. We can manage to say someone has died. But we don't like to think, even for a moment, about someone saying that about us. Because that inevitable event, death, that is what you and I are on a downhill incline facing every single day. And babies die. Young people die. Old people die. Pretty women die. Handsome men. Rich people. Everyone faces death and will die. No matter what your philosophy is, what your preoccupation is, what your orientation is, who you think you are, where you think you're headed, what's your background, what's your family, what's your class, title, and structure, it doesn't matter. We're all headed towards death. And life is a gift that's been given to you and me. And we have to work out the variables between here and there.